By the way, yeah, you offended me 50 years ago.
Well, good morning. It's a Friday at the county courthouse. Kurt Vanderwall will be here. Is here.
Yeah, and we need to address them, but a 30-year window, I mean, you know, it's
Thank you for who decided to come out on this beautiful sunny day. Have my daughter with me today, Alyssa. I don't know how many of, I think she was here the last time. Carrie, how are you?
How you doing?
Good.
Mike?
How are you? Real quick, and then I'll go right into questions, because everybody knows it's budget time. So, in Lansing, we have our initial budget that the governor released. Our committees are all working on it. I will tell you, it is basically a flat budget. It's less than a percent increase. Right now, it's at 0.6%, which that's flat. The biggest parts in the budget, I will tell you, as you know, is a $56 billion budget. All but 11 of it is designated for certain budget pieces that cannot be altered. We have no control over it, so we as legislators really only have control over about $11 billion. And out of that, there's two pieces that I'm extremely attentive to. Is number one is our K through 12 funding. Proposed right now, I believe, about a $230 per student increase for the schools that are out of formula, or what we call not at the threshold, the base rate, which I feel is extremely important. It gets us closer. We're still probably 10 years away from being equal funding statewide for all school systems, but we're slowly catching up. The other one was the community college side. It was basically a flat budget, and I feel that that was underfunded with what I saw with the state colleges at a 4% increase. So working on that to get those two issues done. I did meet with Governor Snyder a week ago with 5 other legislators talking about school funding, professional trades, and then of course school safety. And working to have a grant put in the budget for schools to be able to access for school security, which would basically be what I call front end. So when you came into the school, that there would be some dollars there that you could use to put in security systems. Number one, a buzz system. Number two, a video so that you can actually see who is at the front door. We did have that in the past, and it was taken out of this year's budget, and we have asked that we could see that be put back in when we met. So excited that they're open about that. As you know, we just passed a $175 million road funding package that we sent to the governor. He signed it, so your local road commissions should see that money here soon. I don't have the exact breakdown per county. I requested that. I do know that Mason County was $390,000. And then, of course, out of that, there was some of the townships and what they get. So it's about $360,000 to the county and about $30,000 spread through the townships. And then the city was completely different. They have their own funding, so Manistee City would get something different. So excited about that. I mean, we know that we have a major road problem. As we know that, I believe you had just about $400,000 that was in Manistee already this year. Jeff, do you remember that number? It's close to that.
Well, I think it was the total funding package increase was a little over 800 is what it was
Right,
supposed to
to
be.
what it's gonna be after next year. Because we got 2019 is our big year. There's an extra $600 million that's going into the road package that will be distributed out, which brings all the counties in our district basically are similar in size. So Manistee, Mason, a little over 800,000 new dollars that will come into the county for roads. And we know that the cost of doing road repair, and I mean, we passed them patching holes on 31 as we came up. This year was a very hard year on roads, harder than normal because of the weather we had. Warm, rain, freeze, warm, rain, freeze, and not staying cold at one period of time for a long section. So it's a concern, and we are definitely addressing it. I will promise you this, we will work very hard. There's not very many legislators that are left from when they made this road package deal. Most of them are gone. So my concern is when new people come in, they say, well, just because that group saddled us with that, we can get rid of it. That's not my intent. I mean, we last year when we did some of our budget, some of the tax talk, I had amendments in there to make sure that that would be guaranteed, that road funding would stay intact along with our rainy day fund. So we've got to make sure we keep that going. You know, school safety continues to be a major topic of what we're talking about. You know, so you can couple that in there with the issue of what went on at the University of Michigan State University, I should say. There was a bill package that just came out of the Senate. I have some concerns with the package. I understand why the package was passed. I believe that that we will get to an agreement, that we will make sure that we can have the security and people that if they've ever been abused or sexually harassed, that we will make sure that it's addressed. I just felt that right now a couple pieces inside the 10 bill package were a little bit overstepping. In a 30-year, it's a 30-year, the biggest concern that I had was a 30-year look back. And it can damage even the family unit, and there was some concerns with that. I've got to read them. I haven't seen the exact package now that they've been passed out. I've only read what was prior, and there was some concerns, and I had talked to Senator Boer, and I know that he had some concerns as I did, but they did pass the Senate. So we'll be working on those. I don't know, we'll get to them, and they'll start in committee yet this week when we get back to Lansing, or they'll be shortly after we go. Auto no fault continues to be a hot button. I will tell you, I introduced a bill yesterday on a 90-day grace period for folks that let their insurance lapse. Right now, currently, if somebody lets their insurance lapse and they don't renew it, when they go to renew it again, they get thrown in what is called a high-risk pool, which is double, in most cases, what they were currently paying, which puts people basically on the, I'm not gonna get insurance. It took about 30 seconds, and I was getting phone calls from some of the insurance companies, what are you trying to do to us? And I said, well, I think that it's let's talk about what are we trying to do to the people. We've got to get people on the system. We can't continue to allow them to leech off. Now, we know in the system if somebody is a chronic violator of that, we already know that, we can address that. If somebody comes in and buys their insurance and cancels it 30 days later, and 11 months later goes in to do it again in a different company, we can track that, and we can address that way. But somebody that, and I'll give you an example, person blew up their car, motor blew up, it had 300,000 miles on it. Her dad says, use my vehicle until spring and then buy a new one. So that's what she did. She goes in the spring, she never canceled her insurance. She did went into the spring after she bought a new vehicle. and her insurance went from $1,800 a year to $3,600 a year. And she goes, wait a minute. And they said, no, you're high risk, you let it lapse. And so needless to say, that's what this bill is about. And that's the first of a series of bills that I'm working on in auto no fault. But right now, the other series of bills, I'm working with trying to get somebody on the Senate side so that we can actually have both chambers working on getting a true package that we can see some relief. So with that, I'm just gonna open it up for questions. I'm sure there's plenty. Absolutely.
School funding,
Yep.
cyber schools.
Correct.
The governor suggested they be funded at 75%. I understand it's gone back to 100%.
Correct.
What is the reasoning?
What is just the cost of the school to actually do that? And I don't know where it's talked at 100%. I don't know because the budget isn't done yet. So I really can't say. I've heard it was gonna go back to 100%, but as I said, that part, I don't know, and I'll be honest, I haven't asked about that. If it was gonna be moved back to 100% or not. I know last year it was.
Yeah.
But I don't know this year. I know that there's a study that I've requested to see what the costs are, and I have not seen that yet, but I did reach out to the Department of Education for that, of what the true cost to run a brick and mortar school versus a cyber school. And I can't give you a good answer on that right now. If it's at 100% or if it's still held at 75, I don't know.
Oh, good.
That I don't know. But I heard rumor that some were advocating it to go back to 100. I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I don't know anything about the cyber schools. Is this a for-profit operation?
The cyber schools, yes, they're a school that basically, everything is online.
Right.
You have one of the largest in the state right here in Manistee County with 19, I believe about 1,900 students.
So conceivably, if it's cheaper to operate a private, a cyber school as compared to a brick and mortar school, any increase in funding just will go into the profit.
It potentially could.
Good.
Yeah.
And that's why I requested that study, because I honestly don't know. I know it's expensive to run a cyber school because of what you gotta do, but I don't know the true cost of a cyber school. There's some other things that I'm working with the director here of the ISD. Since we've kind of got into the discussion, I feel that we need to look at cyber schools a little bit differently, of how they're graded and how they're placed into the system, because I feel that they should be graded differently and not thrown into the mix of the Manistee County school system, because there's a higher dropout rate in cyber schools because of what we're trying to achieve there. A lot of these students, this is kind of their last chance for education because they haven't been able to function in a normal school system. But if we hold that against Manistee Public or Onakama and it's thrown in that ISD, it actually drives their graduation rates down, which can greatly affect, if you look at how the school functions versus other public schools in other areas. So I've been working with some people on seeing if there's something we can do to pull that out of the grading system, because I don't feel that we should do that. Especially when, a great number of those students that are at the cyber school are actually not even attending,
From Manistee.
or from Manistee, I should say, well, we already know that, so.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's the answer I can give you on that one.
Okay.
I've not looked into cyber schools at all. What is, the grade level? Do you have a lot of young kids? Are they mostly the older high school kids?
It's actually all levels, it's amazing, but the majority are high school. And I went there, I actually sat through a class, so I knew what it was all about. Not the way that I would want to be taught, because I'll be honest with you, looking at a TV screen, there's a teacher on there. I will tell you, it was amazing how it worked. I gotta give them a lot of credit. It was, in some cases, very, to me, almost over thorough, because they see the problem as you're doing the math problem. They're watching you do the math problem because of what it is. I never liked somebody looking over my shoulder as I was doing. That always made me get a little, but the gentleman was, I thought, very thorough. The teacher that I had, that I watched that day for the hour-long class, or I should say 50 minutes. But it was, very interesting. But different.
Yeah.
Not what I would want to be in.
But for the most part, you think the school budget will go through as is, or is there a lot of talk about it?
There's always a lot of talk about school budgets, but I feel that we've got a pretty solid relationship amongst the folks on both sides of the chambers, that I don't see a huge change in it.
Good.
But as I said, until we see it in about 2 weeks, I heard that we're gonna see it somewhere probably a week or so after we get back after Easter. I always last year we thought we were fine too, and then all of a sudden they had stripped out 2 times funding 100%, which was a surprise. And as you know, I was one of very few that voted against the school budget last year, because I felt it was a disservice to our northern schools, or the schools that needed that. And there's amazing how many schools throughout the state. I always say to the north, because I live up here, but if you get into some of the rural districts throughout the state, they're on this 2 times funding too. And I'd love to have the extra money just to get us all even playing field, and we could quit fighting about it and be done with it. But we've worked it out right now, and of course, I want to make sure that the relationships with the folks in the south, because they could easily vote against it, and the 13 of us up north could be all on our own little island, and they could vote it away, because they have that power. So that's where the relationships come, and making sure we address that. So yeah.
Is there any limit on the profit they can make? I mean, conceivably,
school?
on the cyber schools. I mean, if they conceivably find ways to cut corners, they get to keep more money?
Well, I can tell you, they don't make a lot of money now under what I've seen, but I can't tell you that. I don't know enough about the cyber school right now. This is the second year of me actually even being involved with that. And
Seems
that's
like
why I asked for that study.
Yeah, it
because
seems like it
I
would
don't
be
know.
wise to put limits on it,
Right.
because the incentive to,
Right.
give kids basically in order
Right.
to make more money is there.
Right.
So,
Well, and that's their goal. They always want to make that, they don't get some of the school, they get the base part of it, but they don't get some of the other things because they don't offer those services. But that's why I asked for that report. When I asked for it, the person in education goes, "What report?" And I said, "There's a report. I was told about it when I met with the superintendents," and they started digging, and they said, "Yeah, well, it's not completed, but we'll get it to you." So the superintendents, when I met a week ago, or 2 weeks ago now, here in Manistee, were the ones that alluded to that report. So it's scheduled to be done sometime early April. Yes, Gary?
What kind of tax cuts we got coming this year?
Other than what we just passed, I don't see any other tax cuts coming right now. We just passed the one about a month ago, and that's what the federal did, and that was on the personal side, and I don't see any other ones coming right now.
It was federal?
Well, the federal did their big cut, and then the state had to, because it changed a couple things. And if we didn't, it would have actually been a tax increase for us. We did push through a a tax credit about a month ago, but I don't see anything else coming. Not right now. Yes?
Could you explain what a bottomland harbor is?
Certainly can. Bottomland Harbor is basically, there's very few of them in the Lower Peninsula. Most of them are in the UP. And it's it's just a very shallow shoreline where people were granted a permit by the DEQ and many, many years ago. There'll be no more issued, but they were granted back in the 50s. And they built kind of like a break wall, and they were able to harbor a boat in there.
So they can build a break wall?
Yep, they'd build a break wall normally out of rock. And it was kind of like a little harbor, kind of like you would come into Manistee Harbor.
Okay.
And it was actually anybody that had those, and there's not very many of them out there, but anybody that had been granted to have one had to open that harbor up for refuge. So if there was a storm and somebody was out there and they needed to sleep, anybody could go into that. And they're not big. In most cases, they're about double the size of this room. Some could be bigger.
These would be permits issued to individuals?
Yes, they were. Yep. And there hasn't been, there will not be any new ones, and that doesn't restrict, if somebody builds this harbor, it doesn't give them any right to block off the shoreline. People can still use the shoreline. And that comes from that series of bills that we passed about, time goes fast, I'm gonna think probably 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago. And the state had decided that they were gonna, before there was hardly any charge for them, and then the state decided to come up with a dramatic increase, which in reality, dramatic increase for an individual, it was dramatic. For the state dollars, it was pennies, but basically put some rules in there that it would be on an assessed value of what it was, and we granted them for a total of 50 years, 25, and then you renew it. And 300, and I think the average person would pay like 300 and some bucks a year for it. But there will be no more issued. Just the ones that are currently in place.
I think I've seen some like around Harbor Point and Harbor Springs.
Boy, I don't have that form with me anymore. It's back at the office. I don't know if there was any up there. I know there was a couple here in Manistee County, but I think there was a total of 50 something, and the majority of them were all in the UP. Not very many in the Lower Peninsula. And the Corps of Engineers was, the people that oversee them are the Corps of Engineers, because we gotta make sure that if you're gonna keep them, you gotta keep them in shape.
Yeah.
That was part of this rule, is that you've gotta make sure that they don't go in disrepair. If they are, then it needs to be removed and completely taken apart. And the DEQ were involved with that.
Okay.
Yep.
I looked up House Bill 4205.
4205,
Yeah.
help me, refresh me.
Okay, yeah, and this is straight from the Michigan.gov, where you
Yeah.
describe,
Yeah.
summarize the bill, basically. And what it says is, again, it's just phrases where the summary is, but adoption of rules by state agencies prohibit from being more stringent than federal regulations.
Yeah.
That's the bill.
Yeah.
And if you go throughout the bill, the
Yeah.
actual bill, it's not my opinion, I'm reading the bill. Again, the agency shall not adopt or promulgate a rule more stringent than the applicable federal mandated standard. Seems to me like Michigan is, why would we give that ability to protect Michigan away? Because we're not saying when the Fed set a standard, we won't make it weaker, but I don't think
Can I
we
see
ever
that one
had
right
that,
there?
yeah.
Let me
mhm.
read that again.
Yep,
Because I actually,
We're saying,
I
if
didn't
the
expect
feds,
that one, that's been, we passed
Sure.
this several months ago, and I
Absolutely.
actually had the copies for months inside my briefcase.
and that's just one page of the bill, as you know, it's huge, but that phrase occurs over and over. So it's basically saying if the feds set a rule, and particularly now with Scott Pruitt, that
Right.
rule may be
Right.
a more lenient rule, to be kind about it. And if we in Michigan say, wait a minute, our air is being polluted, our water is being polluted, our Great Lakes are being damaged by that new federal rule, we no longer have the ease or the ability to say, we want our rule to be more stringent. That's the actual wording, that we will not make it more stringent.
Well, I
We're
think-
giving away
I
our
know,
ability.
here's what I wanna read to you, because, again, we paraphrased here, and you highlighted just a piece of it.
Right, there's a
I want-
bunch of
I-
hoops
right.
to jump through.
Not really, and I wanna read it for you, because I actually had the fiscal analysis, and I wish I would've brought it, because it would've told you exactly. It says here in section 8, except for an emergency rule
Except.
promulgated, except, under section 48, if the federal government has mandated that this state promulgated rules, an agency shall not adopt or promulgate a rule more stringent than applicable federally mandated standard unless, and that's
Go
the
ahead.
key word,
Unless,
the director of the agency determines that there is clear and convincing need to exceed this.
right,
So,
but
that is probably the
that
most
is,
key.
no, it's not,
three.
it's one of the many, many hoops. If you read the whole bill, I
I
wish
did
I
read
brought
the whole,
bill.
I did read the whole
Well,
bill, and I voted
but
for the bill.
It's a
And you and I-
series of hoops
Here-
that you now have to jump through that you didn't
it-
before.
It really bothers me when we take pieces of this, and you and I have discussed this, and
Right.
then the thing is, it's just like OSHA or MyOSHA. We can set any standard, we can't go weaker, we can go more stringent, but we can't just go willy-nilly do it without making sure that we show just cause to do it, and I get very concerned when we take pieces.
I'm not taking a piece.
I will send you give me your address, I'll
Okay.
send you the fiscal analysis of this, because if you read the true fiscal analysis, other than just highlighting a little yellow, I want you to read what actually was mandated through the state.
I would like to share my interpretation, and I guess we'll just have to respectfully disagree.
Well, yeah,
But to me, when I read it, it basically sets up a series of gigantic hoops that we must now jump through in order for Michigan to take a stand and disagree with the feds on a rule. So you look at it as justified things. It looks like a lot more hurdles to keep
I have
our.
stated before, Michigan is here, we have all the states around us
Right,
that we've formed a compact. It disappoints me when we have agencies that decide that they want to make something much more strict. And it puts Michigan at a disadvantage because we have everybody that surrounds us that says, forget you. That is crazy, why are you doing this? I have no issue when our Great Lakes Compact says, we stand tough, this is the rule that we're gonna live with, and all of us are gonna do it, even though the federal government says it can be at this standard. We're gonna make it, if we have everybody that does that, great, fine and dandy, but if you just pick Michigan and make a law that's way tougher and exceeds anybody else, what did we just do to the state of Michigan? Because there is no magic boundary line in the middle of the water, as I've stated before, right? There's no boundary line in the middle of the water.
right.
So if we have 8 states around us that say, this is perfect, and we come up with a stricter one and our businesses have to work around that, I'm not trying to destroy what we're doing, but we destroy our economic base that the state of Michigan has.
You
Just
know,
like-
nothing is saying you have to make it more stringent. This is just your
Right.
ability, if you discover a true health hazard to your citizens,
Okay.
it's now harder for Michigan to fix that. Flint comes
Mm-hmm.
to mind, how long things got dragged out before it got fixed. I know that's a separate issue, but it's
That is a separate
analogous
issue,
to
and
this.
that
So I think we're just gonna respectfully disagree.
I will make sure you get me your address, I will get you the fiscal so you can actually read what it is, because sometimes in there, I want you to see what it really is, because it's important that you see the true way it was bred and what it turned out to be. I get very nervous about when I see little pieces.
Well, it's your summary,
I
it's not mine.
understand. I understand.
That's the key to the whole law that they pulled out on the Michigan.gov site, is that it prohibits from being more stringent. That's not me, that's whoever in your government summarizes the bill. That's the essence of the bill
It
to
doesn't really
them.
prohibit this, and
Well,
I guess that's the thing. It
that's-
sets a standard.
It's not my words,
It
it's
sets a
Michigan.
standard. And we can't be weaker than the federal government, but we can be more strict. All right. Yes.
A few years ago, and I cannot tell you for sure, we had the right to work legislation.
Mm-hmm.
A couple questions. How long ago was that, and how are the unions responding to that now?
It's been, I can't give you the exact date, but it's probably been 5 years ago
I'd say
now,
5
I'm gonna
years, yeah.
assume. The unions have, they basically, it's not how the unions have responded to it, I guess it was be more how the general public has responded to it. The
How's
people
that?
because let's just take a teacher. If a teacher doesn't want to join the MEA, they don't have to join the MEA. Now, that's the rule and how that worked. Do some of them do that? Sure, some of them do, some of them don't. Just like the retirement program, they can make a choice of how they want to get a retirement. Now, they can do the hybrid or they could do a 401k. I mean, those are choices that some people make. I will tell you from what I have seen in the groups that I have met with, union organizations, they have gotten much better in lines of communicating with their members.
Okay.
I would say that they've worked harder to make sure that they keep them informed. Have they seen a great fall off, and have they come up and said this is the worst thing? They have not made that statement to me. But I would say that they probably worked harder than they had in the past to make sure that they've communicated better with their members. Yeah.
It was a great surprise to me, and I'm sure to other people, but why did you choose to run for the Senate?
Why did I choose to run for the Senate? Because I feel that right now that, and I guess let's do our normal meeting, and I'll take the last 5 minutes and we'll talk about that, because I really still, my ultimate job is to be the state representative. I want to make sure if we have extra, I took the last 5-10 minutes in Scottville and did the same thing, so we could, make sure all the other answers, and then I'll be glad to explain that, because you'll see her more than once, so
Okay.
that won't be an issue. But I just soon let's finish this, what we've got on this end, and if we don't have anything else, I'll be glad to go right into it, and you can ask me questions, but yes.
Yep, yeah, I know this is gonna sound redundant, but the last time when we talked about tax cuts, it was explained to me that there was a budget surplus, and so that we were giving the money back to the people that the money came from. And so now to solve some of these big problems, this is money we had in hand. And so now to solve some of these big problems, we gotta raise taxes, or we gotta find where this money's gonna come from. And it seems to me that we had the money in our hand already, and that we could have put a hunk of that towards roads or schools or whatever our problems were. And it's kind of the case that once you got it, it's a lot easier to keep it than it is to try to get it again. And
Well, I
this
appreciate
is kind
you.
of
Right,
in
I
my mind.
appreciate, what we did is that under the way that, because as you know, we tried to pass the tax rebate at 0.10% or, 0.1%.
$40 a person, right?
Well, it was more than that, but it was back in February or March of last year, and it failed. If all of us remember, we went up to 4.25 from 3.9. back in 2008 or 7, somewhere in that area, with the promise that when we got back on our feet, we were gonna reduce it back to the 3.9. So we promised the citizens that we did. So then we start taking the money and we start getting a budget surplus again, but yet we're still taking this money out of everybody that we promised we were gonna give back. Now, some people feel that that's fine, then earmark that money for this. But in other cases, people felt we made a promise and we need to live with our promise that we promised back during Graham Holmes' administration that we were gonna do this. And that was the real gist of why we wanted to do that and why we wanted to give people back. And that was part of the reason why my amendment in there was to make sure that we had our budget surplus, that we maintained that at $1 billion, and that we made sure that we kept with the promise of the $600 million that we promised for roads. And that we kept our education promise that we were gonna do, and it failed. And then this last one that we just passed, the reason that was done is if we didn't, we would have actually had a increase starting next year because of the federal government. So this actually will bring us back into more being equal with the current taxes that we're paying. There will be a rebate of about $172 or something like that, but.
2 taxpayers, but not per capita. It works out to
Correct.
about 40 per capita.
Right.
100 and something.
About 170, the average family will see about $172. So,
We have about $1 billion in the rainy day fund. Is that ever going to be tapped?
well, I'm assuming that someday it will be, yes.
It's bigger than $1 billion, isn't it?
No, it's about 987 million
Oh, okay.
right now. You know, it's always good to have, I think you need to have that for emergencies that you do. I mean, we all do them in our counties. Hopefully, most everybody does something in their home to have a little bit of a fund. But $1 billion doesn't go very far in the reality of the world. I will tell you that, you know, not that many years ago, we had, you know, less than 10 million in there. And that's, but you know, this year we had a budget surplus of about 280 million. We put 175, hi there. We did 175 right into the roads. And then, the other went into paying down some debt for the state debt and some pension debt. We're putting about $1 billion into the school fund right now for pension debt each year.
Yeah. Wasn't the governor thinking about maybe some school gun safety funds coming from the rainy day?
Not that I'm aware of. But when we had our meeting together, I didn't catch that was in there, but matter of fact, that's the first I heard, so I really can't say. I haven't heard that. Welcome, guys.
I have a question.
Sure.
Tim Joseph, President.
Hi,
I called your office and you did call my phone and left a message, I appreciate that. House bills 4565 and 4568. And these are versions of Senate bills 584, 586, which were passed by the Senate in November and allow concealed carry in places like churches, daycare centers, schools. And I had a conversation with Darwin Brewer about this. some time ago. I wanna know what your viewpoint is on this.
Well, I believe I left you a little bit of what my viewpoint was on the phone, if I.
No, you just said you didn't, actually.
Oh, I thought I did, but.
No, it's all right.
All right. Okay, well, my viewpoint of, first of all, I don't have, an issue with the bill package that was passed out of the Senate. However, when it comes to, the school portion of that, I feel that that becomes a district decision and not a state legislative decision. I have some concerns when it comes to some of the school things that they were talking about, arming teachers and doing things like this, that I felt those decisions need to be made by the school. I feel, you know, kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of some of these things, not everybody inside a school system should be armed. And so I get a little bit concerned, but if somebody was in a school system that was a retired police officer that was teaching there, that's been properly trained, that becomes a decision if it would be brethren or whoever it is. I will tell you, a lot of the school superintendents have mixed feelings on this series of bills. Some are all for it, and some are totally against it. Some feel that their teachers should be armed, some think they shouldn't be armed. My concern inside a district such as Brethren, I use Walkerville, which is in the southern part of Mason, Oceana, Newaggle. When you're 30 miles plus away from a local law official, I get very nervous. That's a long ways away. So I don't really have an issue with the way the bills were written. I do have an issue in how they're interpreted and what should be allowed in a school system and what shouldn't.
So, school districts should have, you think maybe school districts should have a right to decide some of these things, but my church shouldn't?
I guess, I believe in most cases it's already happening inside a church. We don't know it. I will tell you that right now. I know it is happening in Mason County in a lot of the churches already.
Is that an answer to my question?
Do I think that your church should have that opportunity? If your church decides they want to do it? I think it's already happening. So that's why I said I don't really have a problem with the series of bills that was there.
Is your understanding of the bill that a daycare center or a church could prohibit firearms if they chose to?
No, I don't believe under the interpretation of the bill or my thought that the church could say no firearms in the church.
That's I just got done reading it, and that's my interpretation too. So I'll say this to Darren Poor, and I'll say it to you. What's your justification for taking away the right of my church to determine whether there's firearms in the church?
What is my right?
What's your justification? You said you don't have a problem with
Personally,
with the bill.
I've had this conversation with a lot of folks before, I don't have a problem with people open carry or they carry. If they're properly licensed and they're trained, I'm a hunter, I'm a fisher, I'm an outdoors person. If I want to carry a gun, I don't necessarily see the issue there.
You don't see an issue if my church says we don't want firearms on our property, that we don't have a right to say that? Anybody can walk in if they want with guns, and we don't have a right to say anything about that?
You know, I don't have an issue if your church made that. I guess I honestly don't. I look at it and I say, if somebody wants to attend that church and they only want to be there because they want to carry a gun and you don't want to have a gun there, you know, I guess you know, I don't have an issue with the law the way it was, the bills that passed. It's not gonna come, I don't believe we're gonna see them come to the state or the House of Representatives because of some issues that a few of us have with a couple of way things are written. You know, I guess, you know, you put it in that terms, I still feel that if your church didn't wanna have them there, then, you know, that's fine, but if somebody wants to carry it, which I'm gonna lay odds probably already happening inside your church and you don't know
That's not an answer.
it. Well, it is an answer.
Well, it's not an answer.
Well, it is an answer.
It's not an answer to my question, which is.
Do you feel that your church should have the right?
Yes.
And what did I tell you?
And you feel that my church should not have the right. You just said it.
That's your answer. I think that if somebody wants to have open carry where they want to open carry, I don't have an issue with that.
So if somebody wants to walk in to my church anytime they want with a semi-automatic rifle on their back, sit down, just fine with you. Or if, when the Alcoholics Anonymous meet in our basement, and they're all sitting around, they can all just bring their guns, and that's just fine with you, huh? You're right.
That's right. Yeah, I just told you that I don't have an issue with the bill.
Okay, I've heard enough. But you haven't heard the last of it, I'll tell you.
You said a few of us have, there's a few people who have opposing views on this. It's not just a few people. You know, if you poll after poll across the country, including Michigan, shows that a very significant majority of people want to see these kinds of
Very
controls.
significant majority.
Yeah.
I'd love to see the poll.
You'd like to, well, they're on the news just about every day.
You and I have had the discussion about the news media many times.
Yeah.
You know what, it's very interesting to me. I think, you know, we sit here and we talked about, this is probably the craziest thing about it, we talked about it in our superintendents, and they said, do you remember the days we used to come and we brought our rifle in, and it hung in our car, and we put them in our locker? What is happening? I think what we really get off base, folks, here, is that we're not willing to face the real problem. And the real problem is, we have a social issue that we have brushed under the table for years and didn't want to address. And we say the gun is the problem. The gun isn't the problem. The problem is we have a society that has had issues with addressing violence, addressing the mental health, addressing the stability of a family, but not addressing early childhood development, and we want to blame a gun. Our two biggest terrorist attacks that happened in the United States haven't dealt with a gun. Have not dealt with a gun. It happened with somebody that stole 2 planes and blew them into towers. We had the bomber in Oklahoma that filled his car full of fertilizer. Do you want me to start banning fertilizer that you buy in the store? I think we need to face the real fact it becomes a social issue. And I don't think we want to do that sometimes.
What is that social issue?
What is a social issue? What do you think it is?
I think you laid it out just right. It's all those things.
Right.
And there's nobody here that disagrees with that.
Okay, but we don't want to address the social issue.
Well, you say we, I agree, I agree, you don't want to.
Yeah.
We don't want to.
You have, well, you sit there in the legislature and you don't want to deal with any of this stuff.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
Are you, seriously, are you putting money into,
Mental health.
are you really supporting the mental health system in this state?
We all know that we have an issue in the mental health system, right? $17 billion in
Yeah,
state
but one
Michigan.
party's, you have
Hold
one
on.
party rule, go ahead, do
That's
it.
not, that is so untrue.
Do it.
That, I'm gonna tell you what, that you want, I don't know what party you're affiliated with, doesn't matter to me. Doesn't matter to me. We tried to pass a series of bills inside the education system that would bring professional trades to it, and it barely passed, and it had not a vote on one side. It's sad to
You
me,
don't need to vote on one side, you have a majority.
but doesn't mean that we'll have it next time. If we can't do something inside our education system now to address some of these issues, that's a concern to me.
You
Because
guys know how to-
tossing dollars into certain situations doesn't fix things,
Agreed,
right?
agreed.
And I will tell you this, it's really sad when we have a school system that has several hundred students in it and we can barely fill a football team. When it used to be an honor. And then what did that teach us? What did it teach our kids? Honestly. Teamwork, dedication, respect, fellowship. And now we can't get a team to be filled because they want to go home and buy a video game that blows people apart and it's so graphic. And we wonder.
There's not a person here that doesn't agree with you on that.
I think
You know,
we're
you have
fighting
to-
really hard to do things that are a little bit different, but you know what? It's a lot of discussion that goes on. $17 billion in our mental health we're increasing it to this year. And you wanna know what? It's not enough. It's not enough. But it's the huge majority of our $56 billion budget. And you know what? We have a task force right now that's been working on trying to establish mental health and seeing some guidelines and following some other states and how we're going to increase that budget and actually make a difference. But you know what? It makes a difference. It makes a difference, and you made it. How does your church react? How's your church going out into the community? How's our church showing love to one another? Is our church out there doing those things anymore like it used to be?
That's it.
I think that we all can do better, and it starts with us in this room. But I don't like it when you say you have majority and you can just make that. Because you wanna know what, there's 110 people and every one of them has their own thought process.
Let me just say this, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Still, the fact is, it's one party rule. And I'll make the observation, it's rule. You guys know how to rule. Really well. You're really good at it. You don't know how to govern, that's the problem.
But you know, too, you have, historically, it's the Republican Party under Governor England that dismantled the mental health system that we had back in the 90s. Shut down all the mental health clinics in the state. That was a huge setback, the results of which we're experiencing now in this state. I don't know about nationally, but in this state that happened.
I think if you wanna take it nationally, here's our bigger problem. Is that nationally, we're losing primary care physicians and mental health physicians because of why? Because if they make a decision, it's on somebody's record permanently, and they are sued, and they're sued, and they're sued, and they're sued. And people say, why do I wanna do that? So, we don't have staff to run the Hadley that we closed down, because we don't have staff that can go in and properly, because they're afraid if they make that decision, they're gonna get their life sued all over the place. I mean, we can talk about a lot of things, but we've created some of those things because we've given so much control. And you know what? I don't have, with the lawyers, I should say control of the lawyers. I mean, everybody, I mean, look at it. Look on TV, how many times do you see a commercial for a lawyer, let me defend you? I mean, there's a lot of issues, and I'll tell you, all we can do is continue to fight. And I feel that I've worked hard on trying to fight to do the right thing. Some of you probably don't agree with that, but you know what? I thought I've worked hard to hear both sides. I think my voting record will prove that I hear both sides. But you know what? That's the decisions that you have to make. We could be a hard-handed far right, or we could be hard-handed far left. But we've got the middle. We've got 80% that we need to make sure that we try to govern for the 80%. And that's what it is.
I so totally agree with what you're saying, but can you give me one example where on something of substance, where you have gone against your party?
Yeah, education. I was literally one of 4 Republicans that voted against the education budget.
Good, I'm glad to hear
Okay.
that.
And I'll tell you, I'm still feeling that. But you know what? They know where I stand, and you wanna know what? We've got enough people that came up to me afterwards and said, boy, I'm glad you stuck your neck out. But you know, I fought that way, and by the time we got done, we had almost 80 votes between both parties that voted for the budget that I fought for the first time. Pretty darn good. But you know what? I took some heat for that, and I still take heat for some of those things but you know what? I've done that, and I asked you to go back and look at my voting history. I can't give you every example where I broke away from it, but I fought hard throughout to negotiate to get things where they're acceptable, that we can get bipartisan buy-in. And if you look at the majority of the bills that we passed in the House, you're gonna see that it's pretty darn close that the majority are bipartisan. They'll have somewhere in the mid-70s. But I will tell you, one of my key pieces, professional trades, it barely passed. Barely passed. And that was disturbing to me, because here we are putting a school system in jeopardy right now, and it's still stuck in Senate, in jeopardy right now, to give our kids an opportunity to make choices that they want to become in a professional trade. So our education system already right now is struggling, if they pass this bill, not to be able to have time to do it. Yes, Mike?
Yeah, hey, we're talking about guns. My understanding is 51% of all gun deaths are due to suicide. But I think the greater issue, and some of you are going to probably react with, is there's probably 10,000 times as many people killed by abortion. How come we're not just get crazy about that, stopping abortion?
Well, if we, you know, that's a subject that's talked about and worked on every year. And, you know, there's a lot of issues, and you know what, gun violence, we can talk about a lot of different things with that. We can talk about suicides, we can talk about what happens in our county jails. We can talk about the mental health in our county jails and what it costs us to bring people in the shortage of beds. There's a lot of issues that we need to address, and a lot of issues that we continue to fight for. And you know what? Every life to me is precious. It doesn't.
I have a question for you. You're talking about concealed carry. How many people in the United States who have a concealed carry permit have shot someone? You know, just shooting somebody.
I couldn't give you that.
I would say zero.
Well, I'm sure that that's not true, but there's
Might
probably been something there, but you know.
But we have.
I mean, I took the class, I learned, I have the permit. Do I think I'll carry? Probably not. But you know what? I wanted to know what it was. I want to know how thorough it was, and the gentleman that taught the course that I went to, I'll tell you what, when you walked out of there, he knew that we were comfortable and we were able to handle a gun properly. But I've been around guns all my life.
Yeah, me too.
You know, I grew up. Yes, Gary.
You know, I'm basically fundamentally a second rights activist, and that I support the right to carry, and I support all that. However, I will have to agree with Tim here that some kind of mandate to allow private businesses and private churches that mandates that they let people in to carry is going, not necessarily really a gun issue as much as it is a fundamental rights issue. And this here building right here is one of the only ones in the country that somebody can't carry a gun in, right here. Out of all the places that we should be able to carry a gun, it is in this courthouse.
Which is dictated by the previous circuit court judge.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is that we ought to take a good hard look at that. Is that this nonsense about I'm going to defend some rights with my gun. Go out here and see what rights we're defending with our gun is almost zilch. See how far that gets anybody. And I think it's kind of I know you can carry in the Capitol. You can walk in the Capitol with a gun strapped to your back.
Correct.
And I understand that. It's good for the law. If it's good for everybody else, it's good for the lawmaker too. And there's certain places that public buildings, then we should not be able to restrict gun carry. But to mandate that, it's not really even a gun issue, Tim. It's really a private rights issue.
But
Mandating that a church has got to let
you
people
can
in.
walk in the state capitol right now. If you wanted to carry a gun, you can walk into it.
You
right
can.
now.
You'll get some
I asked
attention,
this-
I'm sure.
Well,
I
you
asked the
probably
state trooper
pay some
there, I asked him that
attention,
the other day.
but like I have said many times, there's more people inside that Capitol that have a weapon than, and you know what?
Good.
It's a cultural issue with the guns. You go on, I've been in Kansas in hotels with a rifle strapped to my, going down the hallway,
Oh,
nobody even thinks twice.
Yeah, that got no problem.
Going to
with
my
that.
hotel room, if I was to be in New York City, I would be tackled.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got no problem
At
with
any
that.
rate, Representative, you've allocated an hour of your time for us today, and thank you for coming for that. And you also said you wanted to address,
Yep.
as you were asked about the, 5 minutes, if you can give that to us.
Yep, I will
we
do that.
appreciate it.
As most of you know, I have announced that I'm gonna run for state senate. It didn't come without a lot of family discussion, a lot of prayer, but we feel it's extremely important right now that we have a voice that is willing to listen, somebody that didn't come through the political ranks, somebody that, as I promised when I took this job a year and a half ago, that I would fulfill an obligation, that I would be very accessible, I would be here, I would listen, I would take your responses back, and we have reacted to those in Lansing. I feel very strongly that I'm the right person for the right reasons with mental health and education, and what I want to do with education, with early childhood development, throughout the ranks of, basically, as I call it, from the womb to graduation, because we do have issues. We know what education will do if we start early. We know that the graduation rates are better. We know the incarceration rates are lower. We know the family structure is better. But I feel that I'm a candidate that will listen very hard to what your suggestions are. And as I said, we're not always going to agree, but I would say if you look at my voting record, the majority of what my votes are things that all of you agree on. So I'd love you to consider me. I'm willing to answer other questions on that, but that's the reason.
Just want to say we do appreciate that you come every month. We obviously disagree on many things. Sometimes we do agree,
Right?
but we do appreciate that you do take the time to come in.
Well, and we will continue that. And I know that that's something that I feel is very important. I think every one of you have seen me many, many times out in the community doing things. I've worked hard to what I feel is what's right for our district. Doesn't matter what side of the line we are, and it's like I said, we're not always going to agree. There's certain things that we won't, but the majority of them I do believe we do. But it's been a great experience, and I just feel right now that we need somebody that's gonna would carry what I do in the 101st to all 12 counties, and make sure that we're out there listening to the people and doing what they want us to do, and not hard-headed or enough to not listen to folks, and that's what I want to do. So thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Off to Benzie.
Ah, easy day.
Yeah, Benzie, then Leelanau, and I probably, real quickly, I'm excited today. I'm meeting with the director, the county administrator, at the end of my day, working with a group that would like to bring broadband into Leelanau County, but do it through satellite. And they asked which one of my districts was least with technology, and that's Leelanau County. And this gentleman's willing to, I'm going to propose it to Leelanau County, and if they're willing to have the gentleman come up, but it's not going to give us the 60 gigs or whatever we get from Charter, but it would actually give us enough that they could stream at least 2 to 3 family members at a time, that's pretty darn good. And as we know, our education system today, you can't function without internet for our kids, so that's kind of a highlight that we've been working on, and hopefully I can brag about that as we move forward, so.
You know, broadband today is kind of our freeways of the old era. It really opens up a lot of doors.
Yep, and we're not gonna get business growth without it anymore, so. Been good. Well, thank you, everybody. Yep.
You have a good St. Patrick's Day, okay?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Right when I jump in the water, baby.
I'll be there. Good afternoon, this is Mike Tillotson. I'm at the casino. So
Now there's going to be 2 divers in the pool. Yeah. Okay, so. No, but help pick him up and throw him in.
hold it up. I got a lady down here. Who are you?
My name is Charmaine Stone, and I'm the hotel director at Little River Casino Resort, and I'm also a board member for Special Olympics.
And whose idea was this?
Well, it was basically a collaboration of our board of directors for Special Olympics that decided to bring this event to the casino.
Is this the first one?
It is a first inaugural event here at the casino.
Now, I just checked the water. It didn't seem to be really cold. What's the deal?
Oh, I think it's pretty cold.
Okay. Are you
I
going
have
in?
to plunge in it, so I think
you
it's
do?
pretty cold.
Okay. Yeah, well, I went to these in Wausau, and they dug cut 2 foot of ice in the lake, and then they jumped in.
Well, somebody was mentioning dumping ice in there, but
Oh, I think
no,
they should.
thank you.
Oh, okay. So tell me about. I see we got a dive team. What's their purpose?
So the dive team is here just in the event is, for one, they're going to be helping people get out of the pool, and 2, they're here to help in case of somebody has an issue or
Strokes
strokes out or it's just too cold to move.
And tell me how many people are going to be going in?
Actually, the last that I had checked, we had about 70 different plungers. Online, we've raised over $15,000 at this point, and that doesn't include everything that's coming in today.
Tell me what's this? What's the? I see Special Olympics and things like that. What is this for?
This is for Special Olympics, and Special Olympics basically gives opportunities to athletes to improve their skill sets, and it also gives them a chance to be able to be involved in athletics that will help improve their self-esteem.
So once you jump, and once everybody's done jumping, what's done? What's going on then? Is it
So
done, or?
once everybody jumps and plunges, we'll be having an after plunge party in our event center. And
Is
we
that
have
right here?
Yes, it's in the back of the resort, and we have a ton of different auction items from the local community and NFR.
So what's going on at the casino? I'd never been in that building. I was in that one when it opened. It was.
Oh, were you? Well, the casino, yeah, we have some stuff going on here today as well. There are no concerts or anything, but we have some really hot slot machines.
Are all these buildings hooked together?
Yes, they are.
Oh, they are. Okay,
They
okay.
are, absolutely.
I've been down the other end quite a few times. So, okay. Well, then give me your name again.
My name is Charmaine Stone.
Charmaine Stone.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, I forgot to ask you. What do these people plunging have in common? Are they nuts or what?
That's a good question, because this is my very first plunge. And I've seen like a lot of different people coming in today. Some of them have traveled all over the state of Michigan. They go to different plunge. We have the guys in the knitted suits that apparently are heading to Marquette tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
They've been in like 7 to 8 different plunges already this year.
Now, when I was in Manistee, they had the mayor was dressed up in a big rabbit suit, had long fur, and he almost didn't get out of the lake.
Oh, really?
He had a big steps, and the firemen were helping him, but he got up part way, and he was almost exhausted. He couldn't. I think he learned something.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a couple rescue divers in there in their dry suits. I talked to these guys before, like this. Not these particular guys, and they said it's perfectly dry and they're perfectly warm. They have a wetsuit on, and they have a dry suit. So that dry suit keeps the water completely away from them. They said they start disrobing and their wetsuit is completely dry when they get down. Today is St. Patrick's Day.
You enjoying your what?
Do you see Michelle anywhere? Oh, there she is.
Little river behind Thank you guys for coming out today. So just a couple of suggestions, rules, that sort of thing. No diving, the pool, like 4.5 feet of water. What's going to happen, we're going to have a little parade, like we'll get in line, kind of walk out. No more than 2 people at a time jump off the platform. There'll be a dive team in the water to help you get out.
I don't know where we're going. Do you go this way and walk around? Yeah, I think so. All right. You walk this way.
I see you. Hey, look it. We met. I know. Didi. So cool. Really? It's really cool.
Folks, we need to clear the front of the, keep a gap for the judges. Let's have a gap in front of, Sharp. Let's leave a gap in front of the judges' table so they can see what's going on.
I'm just gonna jump.
Are you? Just miss it?
Just miss it. I don't know how to do it.
Just do like a skirt.
Here he goes, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, put on the show. Put on the show. Don't injure those knees. We need those.
He don't be so smart when he jumps in.
In a tribute to Greg Louganis, here goes Frankie Medaka.
Whoa there! Not so smart now, are you guys?
He got a lot of airtime. He got a lot of airtime.
Next up, Jumpin' Joe Riley. Let's hear it for Joe.
First one. We can. Yeah, we can.
All right, next up, Robert Madako and Matthew Omloff.
Couple pops. They didn't get the instructions. You got to go one at a time.
Let's hear it for Robert and Matthew. Oh, you did him dirty. You did him dirty, Robert.
Cold, isn't it, mister?
Next up, it's giggling Gary DiPiazza. Nice one, Ron. Oh, Gary. Ron's up next. Here we go. Next up, it's sexy Ron Wittenberg. All right. And here we go with Diana D.D. O'Neill. She's going back. She's going back. Whoa! Yep. Next up, it's Leaf and Lacey Moore. Come on, let's hear it for Lacey. Next up is Charmaine the Charmer Stone. Next up, Big Tom Risuri. Come on, Tom.
So it's colder, huh?
Up next, Crazy Carl Stone.
Oh man.
All right, next up, Michelle Dunaway and Jamie Thompson. A twofer from 9 and 10. Next up, Matt Myers and Chuck Tinker. Next up, we have Paul Golumbieski.
Wally, yes! Wally! Don't throw Royal,
Representing LRCR, Rusty Mankey.
Yes!
And next up, representing Special Olympics, Kelly, Jake, Allison, Sarah, and Jamie in a massive group plunge. Check the record. Next up, Brian Dominic.
That was awesome. Ready for
Up next, Nathan Flores. And St. Patrick came in for the day himself, representing himself on his day, Jim Dennis, the plunge coordinator. Next up, we have Ellie McIsaac. Next up, Angel Garcia. Representing the Bear Lake Lakers, Ty Babinet. Another Bear Laker, Clark May. And also from Bear Lake, here comes Jared.
Takes about 10 seconds from when they hit the first step to when they hit the back on the ground. Let's go, let's count together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Up next, also from Bear Lake, is Sylvic and Vanessa.
15. Okay, we gotta do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Also from Bear Lake, here comes
9,
Elizabeth and Mariah.
10, 11. So about 15 seconds.
Hold my hand.
A couple more Lakers, Olivia and Jonathan. All right, Haley and Alyssa, let's talk about it. All right, here comes the Double Trouble Clan Inclusion, Barb and Kelly.
Don't be chicken!
All right, up next, Logan Grabowski. In honor of his grandfather, Jordan Jacoby.
Cold, isn't it, mister?
Next up, we have Marianne.
That hat must be something.
And here on her birthday, Christine Wheeler. In honor of Joe Arnold's birthday, Ray Latham.
Remember Team Yellowstone. Team Yellowstone.
Skeleton man.
Tomorrow will be it. Ho, ho, ho! That's right. Papa Harbor might be, you know.
Oh, lost his hat.
Next up, Team Yellow Snow with their 7th jump of the year. It's Bill and Sean.
Team Yellow Snow.
Ho, ho, ho!
Santa, you'll be ho, ho, ho when you come out of there.
Next up,
belly flapper. Oh my God.
Jack.
Hold that ladder. I'm going to jump. Woo! Oh my goodness.
And because one plunge is never enough, Crazy Carl Stone for jump number 2.
Whoa, cool.
If that was a trust fall, I wouldn't trust the pool. I think that's everything for now. Next up, meet us at 2 o'clock in the event center.
Thank you, everybody. Great job.
Wow.
Great job.
Hey, sweetie. Good to see you. Good job.
We got one more. Hey, Ron.
We got one more jumper?
We got one more. Aaron Vaughn coming up on the table. And that should be all of them now. I'll see you in the event center at 2 o'clock.
Wow. How about that?
Why are you doing it, really?
Get my camera out fast.
Sometimes it's popped up. Got the lighting. It was okay now?
Thank you for coming out. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Very nice.
Didn't take very long, people.
Yeah, they're the fancier maple syrup. Yeah, that'd be a good one. What?
I gave that up a long time.
I don't yell at her.
Yes, you do.
That's because I'm always right. Well, he always did.
Try living with that.
Yep, no, I know.
My name is Michael Thomas. I'm the
Okay,
director of
I will
Auburn
have
Hill
him,
Michigan Resort.
Dad, I will have.
Special Olympics Michigan is a program that provides sports training and competition opportunities to children and adults with intellectual disabilities at no cost to the athletes or their families. This life-changing program is able to continue because of dedicated and crazy individuals like you. Special Olympics Michigan would like to thank you all for coming out to this great event and supporting our plungers. I hope everyone is warming up again and enjoying the food. I personally would like to thank tribal council members who participated in the plunge itself or acted as judges. I'd like to also thank the Department of Public Safety for the tribe who came out and plunged. I'd like to thank my fellow employees for Little River who made the plunge as well. For Special Olympics of Michigan. For the Bear Lake Lakers. And for anyone else I'm forgetting, I had a great time with you guys outside, so thank you all for coming for that. Before we get to the awards, I'd like to introduce two people who lead the path to inclusion and acceptance for all. First up is Lois Arnold, President and CEO of Special Olympics Michigan.
Thank you so much. Well, on behalf of over 27,000 children and adults with intellectual disabilities and their unified partners, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for taking the plunge today. Special Olympics provides year-round sports training and athletic competition to our athletes at no cost to their families. We skills as well as enhancing your self-confidence. This event was an inaugural event which is one of 28 polar plunges from across Michigan. Our statewide goal was to raise more than $1 million through our polar plunges. Thank you all so much for your support. At this time, there's a couple people I would like to introduce. First of all, a board member of Special Olympics Michigan. I would like to ask Charmaine Stone to come on up. And Charmaine, thank you so much for bringing us here to this beautiful facility. Charmaine? She's also a plunger. Here she is. And Charmaine, thank you. I have a plaque to present to you. So this is a certificate of appreciation to Little River Casino Resort. Thank you so much.
We're super excited to see all these lovely faces in the audience, and this is our first inaugural event here at Little River for Special Olympics, and just look forward to next year. It's going to be even bigger. Thank you.
Thank you. I also have another board member that's with us here today. Would Michelle Dunaway please stand up from 9 and 10 News, one of the board members. Thank you, Michelle. She also brought a polar plunge team with her today, so thank you so much. It was the Newsies, I think. Special Olympics is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. And 50 years ago, people with intellectual disabilities were not given the opportunity to come out and be part of events like this. In fact, they didn't have sports programs. Many of them lived in institutions, were sent to special schools, and were really leading isolated and lonely lives. So that's one of the benefits of Special Olympics, is really offering our athletes an opportunity for inclusion and acceptance. So remember, as you think about Special Olympics, please always choose to include. And at this time, I'll turn it back over to Michael Thomas.
Thank you, Lois. I would like to now introduce Ron Pete, Little River Band of Ottawa Indians council member and a good friend of mine. Ron, please come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Michael. I'm here because a good friend of mine, Charmaine, this fall, early fall, was talked about this polar plunge and asked me if I'd like to sit on it and help organize it and be part of it from the government across the street. And I was just jumped at the chance to be able to do this because it's so important that this is for all of our children. It's all of our children. It doesn't matter what walk of life they're from, what color their skin is, where they're from, or whether they can afford it or not, because Special Olympics takes care of that for them. So this has a lot of special meaning to me because, you know, our children, should be about our children. Our children need and always should come first. And we're making them first by doing these pledges. So I was so excited to be a part of it. I wished I could have plunged, but I was at least made to be a judge, which thank you very much. And so on behalf of the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians, the resort, and all these wonderful people here that helped volunteer to make this happen, and especially our plungers, I was so happy to see the students from Bear Lake. I mean, you guys are incredible. So thank you for all you did, and God bless you all, and thank you, and have a great day.
Lois and
Thank you so much. Would you all please help me thank and give appreciation to the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians, and I'd like to ask Ron Pete to come back up and accept us.
It's going to go into an honored place at the government building across the street. Thank you.
thank you so much, Ron and Charmaine. At this time, the silent auction is now closed. Some information, some housekeeping. The bidder must be present and the item must be paid for at the close of the auction. If you are not present at the close of the auction, the item will go to the next highest bidder. If you are the winner, please bring your item bid sheet to the checkout table for your item to be retrieved. With that said, we would like to take some time to thank some of our sponsors as well as the plungers. This event was first started through Law Enforcement Torch Run, which is a group of law enforcement officials supporting Special Olympics worldwide. The Manistee Polar Plunge has many sponsors, including the Law Enforcement Torch Run, Little River Casino Resort, Little River Band of Ottawa Indians, FP Borak, Alliance Beverage Guinness, Lake Shore Photo Booth, Knights of Columbus, Lake Osceola State Bank, Bear Lake High School, Gateway to Success Academy, 9 and 10 News, and many other local businesses that have all come together to support local athletes. And I'd also like to give an extra big thank you for the Manistee County Sheriff's Dive Team for being in the water today, and to the Manistee Fire Department for filling up our freezing cold water to make this event happen. There were several people working behind the scenes today to promote and really make this event a success this year. The Plunge Committee members, the area management team, along with all the volunteers have worked so hard to make the event a reality. Please help me thank them. It could not be done without all your hard work and months of preparation. And we can now announce to you some pretty amazing totals. For the 2018 inaugural Manistee Polar Plunge, we had 42 confirmed plungers today. Our goal today was $10,000, but we raised over $19,000. Please remember that money can still be turned in and that the fundraising pages will still be active for another 2 months. Now the moment we've been waiting for. The awards. I'd like to give a thank you to our judges, the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians Tribal Council member Ron Peet, and to Little River Casino Resort Assistant General Manager Connie Waitner, and for Jody Walter, our Director of Food and Beverage, as well as our Area 24 athlete Liz, for helping us out today. All right. Start off, the best costume goes to St. Patrick. Yes! Seems appropriate. Jim Davis, come on up.
I got him up there. I think he said they're getting all together. So it's all done. So do I. That's right. I know.
Thank you again, Jim. And for our best team costume, the award goes to Yellow Snow, Sean and Bill, who, as rumor has it, is on their way up to Marquette tonight to plunge for their 8th time this year.
I love that costume.
Great job. The best plunge goes to, I believe this team was with Bear Lake, Thing 1 and Thing 2.
Okay. They know that thing What a good memory, huh? Oh my God. It's funny.
All right. For the best plunge cheerleader, it makes my heart proud to say our LRCR's own Thomas, athlete from Area 24.
What did he park? Food and beverage.
Congratulations, Thomas.
He's got a
great job.
person who lives with him who's got works in food and beverage. Okay.
Next, we have the top individual fundraiser winner, and that goes to Brian Dominic. There he is. I don't know.
Oh. I was like, I couldn't remember. I said, call me.
Brian's not sure the total, it was that much.
Wonderful. Why wouldn't come on to
And our top fundraising team stays home here for Team Little River Casino Resort. Char's going to accept on behalf.
I was pretty impressed with him, John. I was too. I didn't think he would. No. I mean, not that I'm not everybody.
And our highest school fundraiser goes to our favorite Bear Lake Lakers. And a quick announcement, I was just asked to let you know if anybody's missing a sweater, we have one over in the River Rock that someone left behind.
We can't because I'm doing
And while she's probably still up here, our youngest plunger, also from Bear Lake, was Mariah McCluth. So Mariah's getting 2. Comes back. All right, Mariah, come back over here because you're our youngest plunger.
Yeah.
And our oldest plunger was Amish Jack.
Amish. You jumped high on that one. Yeah. What did they say? He looks like a Irish guy with that beard. Yeah.
All right. And now the moment some of you have been waiting for. The winner of our 50-50 raffle, we raised a total of $197, or going to the winner is $197. And our winner is red ticket 849017.
No, because it went after me.
Check your tickets.
What is it?
849017.
Right up to
Have any takers?
Those numbers are all we could do that.
One right after mine.
No, this is our closest choice.
Wait a minute.
There you go. Back here. Right here.
6, 7?
We got it?
What was the number?
We just have to rotate those two last
I
numbers.
missed what the number was.
849.
I don't know because they said.
017. There's our winner. Come on down.
Take a chair, let me take a chair.
I got 2 1.
Hey, what do you know? Oh my gosh.
I got hosed.
You got
Yeah, because his would have been the next
With that, we would like to take one final opportunity to thank each and every one of you for supporting Special Olympics Michigan and the athletes they serve. We hope you enjoyed the Polar Plunge and we look forward to welcome you back next year. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we got other numbers going here. Yeah, that's what it really did.
Guys, thank you so much. I know, right? Can you pull it just
I'm going to go down to the Wheat Parade. Be a couple hours, but for you it's going to be second. Well, happy St. Patrick's Day. This is Mike Tillison of downtown Manistee.
Yes.
I don't know, I mean.
Well, it's 5 to 5. Oh, that girl's going to make a cartwheel again. This used to be billed as the shortest freight in Manistee or in the world or something. But that's when I was over on First Street. It was between 1 and 2 blocks long, and that was it. There's an officer getting in the car. Nope, fooled me. That's okay, I like to hear myself talk. Well, those lights are really bright even in the daytime. Well, my guess is maybe there's 10,000 people down here. Yeah, maybe more. What would you think? Oh man, there's a jam of people down there. Probably like 30,000 people. I'm funning with you. Don't sue me. Tell somebody who cares. Yeah. I think here we go. Don't be scared, he's not after you. Kids over here mocking. No kid mocking the police. You'll be mocking a police if it gets pulled over someday. Hey. CFW. World War I Springfield. There's Sheriff O. Smith. Guys, where's your cover?
How are ya?
Good, how are you? Vogue Theater. Bringing movies back to Manistee. I thought we always had movies. Maybe I was in error. Right here, driver.
What?
You're Irish. I'm sure.
And he says, well, I don't have that, but I pulled out the button and said, that was
That's my favorite character right there.
You're awesome. Please. Get it.
About 2 units to go. Looks like a Manistee Ford entry. This guy washed his truck.
You're a little kid.
even a third as much as I did.
Oh, it's rolling on the
Captain Mike! Hey, how are you?
Good, buddy.
Got
a little flash on you.
You got any film? Let me get down in front of you. You got any film in that thing? You got film in that thing?
Oh, yeah, film.
Well, hey. Have a good day. Pray for the troops. To always win, never surrender, never give up. And always be honest.
So pick wisely. One piece. You're eating dinner first.
You see that big dog? Beautiful dog.